Do pharmaceutical companies have your best interests at heart? Does big tech have a secret agenda to empower predators and indoctrinate your kids? Find out today. Plus, we have a special guest, Doctor Avery Jackson, here to discuss the miracle cure that Big Pharma has been pushing on you for the past 3 years. I'm Drenda, and this is Drenda On Guard. Let's get into it. We must stand up. There are answers, and we've got to expose the darkness in the world so that we can be free. Self-made gods are nice things to have around until people actually start to need God, and that's what's happening in our culture. We need to do something. We need to say something. We need to stand up, be bold and courageous. You've got to stay on guard. Welcome, all you faithful warriors of truth. Thank you for subscribing to the channel and fighting like heaven. I urge all of you to share this video with friends and family, as today we'll be uncovering some life-changing truth that everybody needs to hear, so stick around. First, let's keep you up to date and find out what in the world is going on right now. Your kids are under attack by the LGBTQ agenda, and YouTube is complicit. Shocker, I know. Here's the story. PragerU personality Aldo Battazzani accused YouTube of grooming children with pro-sexual minority propaganda, and the evidence he presents is nothing short of staggering. Battazzani said he made an account for a 9 to 12-year-old child, and one of the first videos YouTube recommended was children meeting a gender non-conforming person. He says one of the most prominent channels for children's accounts is Queer Kids Stuff, which breaks down sexualities and details what each of them are. The videos are about topics such as gayness, bisexuality, and transgenderism. This is satanic and evil, but sadly, it doesn't even stop there. Another popular topic of discussion on the Queer Kids Stuff YouTube channel, learning about consent. Aldo believes that big tech is trying to push two ideas. One, that children have the same agency and sense of autonomy as adults. And two, that kids have the ability to consent. With the rise of minor attracted persons, or MAPS for short, the only logical conclusion is that big tech is making a major push to normalize the sexualization of our children. We cannot let this happen. It's time to stand up and fight like heaven to protect the innocence of our kids. Just when we thought all of the dirty laundry had been aired out, Project Veritas released a bombshell report where Pfizer director Jordan Tristan Walker exposed the pharmaceutical giant on hidden camera.
We're exploring, like, now, you know how the virus keeps mutating?
Yeah.
Well, one of the things we're exploring is, like, why don't we just mutate it ourselves so we could preemptively develop new vaccines, right? So we have to do that. If we're going to do that, though, there's a risk of, like, as you could imagine, no one wants to be having a pharma company mutating viruses. You have to be, like, very controlled to make sure that this virus that you mutate doesn't create something that, like, you know, goes everywhere.
Something crazy.
Is the way that the virus started and moving on. To be honest, like, it makes no sense if this virus popped out of nowhere. You're not supposed to do gain function research with the viruses, like, they recommend not. But you do, like, these, like, selected directional mutations to try to see if you can make more potent.
Yeah.
So there is research ongoing about that. I don't know how that's gonna work. There might not be any more outbreaks, because, like, Jesus Christ. Who knows? I mean, either way, it's gonna be a cash cow. COVID will probably be a cash cow for us for a while going forward. Like,
yeah.
I obviously like
As it turns out, the doctors and medical professionals who oppose Big Pharma's cure may have just been vindicated by none other than Pfizer themselves. Dr. Avery is the founder and chief executive officer for the Michigan Neurosurgical Institute, a private practice collaboration with an emphasis on compassion, surgical excellence, and education. He's performed over 10,000 surgical procedures and seen over 100,000 patients in his surgical practice to date. He has participated and led several investigative trials and owns patents for inventions in spinal and general surgery. Doctor, it's so great to have you here again on the program, and thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I just, it's an honor. I appreciate it.
And I also want to take a moment to just thank you. Thank you so much for appearing here before and all of your incredible advice, counsel, encouragement during those COVID pandemic, all of those issues and years of that. We are so grateful because you saved lives, and I know you do that on a daily basis, but I'm sure you didn't ask for or expect to see all that we encountered through that, and you had to shift gears and go in another area, and you did it amazingly. Thank you for saving lives.
Very kind. Thank you. It's an absolute honor.
So the news is just a buzz with all kind of information about what's coming out, things that you warned us about, things that we were seeing, and in prayer we felt like the Lord was showing us. So we had a lot of fear mongering going on in the media back during the pandemic, and a real strong push to get people to take the jab. And now what are we seeing coming out?
So you're absolutely right. It's fascinating that we're hearing all these things, but then when we actually see what's going on, there's a difference. Like, why is that? Well, Senator Rand Paul is really pushing the CDC because it turns out that the public relations firm Weber Shandwick, we've discovered that, in fact, the same firm, public relations regarding that the CDC uses and pays, also Pfizer is paying, and Moderna, to promote the in those under 18, under 16, and even in children. And so that's a problem. The other thing is that with the Pfizer piece, it is, we've seen the Project Veritas video, and what makes it really concerning is we already know their history. If you look at the number of lawsuits and how those lawsuits occurred with Pfizer, there is an issue there. They've, initially it was that this jab is completely good, it's okay, it's safe and effective. Now we realize it's neither safe or effective.
Exactly.
And I was just on actually Flashpoint with Peter McCullens and others, and we were just talking about this recently. And the other issue that we're seeing is what's going on with the kids, what's going on with all of the athletes and younger male athletes and others as well. Right. And so in a nutshell, we know that the spike protein has a propensity for the heart, right? So it wants to travel to the heart, but we know that more importantly, come out. That's what's been creating these problems. So, and there's a study by Keesee et al., and they looked at increased adrenaline or dopamine, we call catecholamines. So we have a God-given increased catecholamines normally to help us with stressful situations. So, but what they found in this study is that when there is increased catecholamine surges, that the mRNA will induce or create inflammation of the heart muscle specifically. Okay, so now it's already it's inflamed, and then with more increased catecholamines, such as sports or exercise, this causes sudden death because there's a propensity for those materials to lodge in the heart muscle or around the heart. So it's already inflamed, and there's already muscle damage. So that's why we're seeing these sudden deaths on the field at football events and other events, is because now you're pushing damaged tissue with the increase or uptick in epinephrine and norepinephrine, which we need when we're excited, the catecholamines, And so this study has shown that both in the
And it's everywhere. We're seeing this. I would love for you to react to, I've got a little piece here that shows the complicity of the media. You were talking about the marketing companies, CDC marketing, and the media. Let's just take a quick look at this, and I'd love for you to react to some of the messaging and how intense it was to put fear in us about harming children. Take a look at this.
Tonight, growing fears for COVID's youngest victims.
We're talking about how horrible, how much of a risk it is to children.
This virus is capable of killing children. It has already killed hundreds of children.
It's getting our kids.
More deaths among children.
Tragic deaths.
Coming for our children.
Is killing children.
Children have died.
Children have died. Children could die every day.
It's killing children.
Killing children.
Wow, like a horror movie. So what do you think, Doctor? I mean, this video goes on for 4 minutes, but I think that's enough. But it just shows you over and over the media putting fear, and it goes on to say, if you don't, you're killing children. You're a killer. What do you think?
So we know that that's completely false. The data shows that in children, they don't have the S1 protein receptors in their nasal pharynx and in their GI system. So the virus in and of itself can't even attach to the areas that would cause a major infection in kids. So physiologically, their anatomy is such that that's not possible. Studies have shown that not one child, not one healthy child, not one up to this point even, has died directly from not one.
And yet they're still driving it.
And they're still driving it, even though the data shows not one has died. And even the flu is worse than, in general, the common cold is worse than. This is a complete lie. End of discussion. And here's the thing. There's something called equipoise in research. When you have a research experiment, for instance, going on to say, why is this happening, right? So the fear narrative is pushing people and moms and dads and others to try to push their kids into getting this jab. And that's a real problem. And I want to say, as the children of God, we don't respond to fear.
Absolutely.
We don't make decisions out of fear. The enemy wants us to make decisions out of fear. We have love, power, and a sound mind, and we make decisions out of faith when we consult the Holy Spirit, and we have peace about things. So if we just do that alone, we'll win, right?
Yes.
We'll make the right decisions. But here's the thing, in terms of the fear, if the narrative is, if someone can drive you with the horrible into taking the jab, then you're not going to listen to the Holy Spirit and listen to wise counsel, or even look at the data that shows it makes absolutely no sense to do this in kids, to give these to kids. And here's the thing, equipoise means, it's an ethics term, which means when you have an experiment that's going on, which is what this all has been.
Yes.
Is when you see a clear benefit, a super clear benefit of a signal where it's getting better, or you see damage occurring, that's when the experiment is supposed to stop. Now, we know in other cases where after 50 deaths, it stopped, right? But in this case, they're continuing to push, even though we're way past those number of deaths. So equipoise, which is really ethical, is not being exercised here. So there's no good science. One other point, in children and in pregnant women, this, for the medical world and scientific world, has always been the final frontier. In other words, even with an experimental drug or procedure, you try it on animals in the lab, you do all of these tests first for safety trials, then it goes to other populations, and the final frontier has always been children and women, because you can create problems in children and women that will affect them and scar them for their entire life. So this, under the experimental authorization, right, is really completely 180-degree of what is the standard posture in the scientific and medical community up to this point. So this is a big anomaly.
Yes, what is going on when you have women that are miscarrying and just stillborn births, and you have athletes falling dead on the field and sudden deaths all over the place and all kinds of other areas? It's obvious it's weakened immune systems because there's deaths, the rates, and you know more better than I do. All kinds of other issues aside from that, strokes and heart issues and all of these things, and I'm sure neurological issues. What in the world? Why would they keep pushing this? What is driving this? Besides the fact that we know the marketing for the CDC is the same as for these companies that are driving these. What in the world's going on? I know you've never seen anything like this. We've never seen anything like this.
Nothing like this, but it has to be a monetary gain and or depopulation control. I mean, when you see the number of people that are dying from the supposed solution, more so now than the actual infection, that's a problem.
There are a lot of Christians who would tell you, a lot of leaders, a lot of pastors that would tell you, don't talk about certain things. In many ways, the church at large has been outwitted by Satan. We don't want to be silent about these things. We want to speak up. It takes courage. It takes boldness. But if we don't address and expose the deeds of darkness, then they take over. We must counter it. We must know our enemy. We must know our adversary, and we must know what his tactics are. We cannot be complacent anymore. You have influence. God has placed you in a sphere of influence. You are a soldier of the light. We need to be straightforward with the truth. Help us to be strong, God. Help us to do our part, Father, to be disciplined, to be ready, to be soldiers of light, soldiers of truth. God, help us to be on guard.